Michael announced publicly on his Substack that he is becoming Orthodox from Roman Catholicism. His roots run deep in the Catholic world. He's been editor for Crisis Magazine, editor for Sophia Press. He's been on the Matt Fradd show.
I just want to hold this up for the camera here, Thursday. This is called The Reactionary Mind by our guest, Michael Warren Davis.
He just came out with a book called After Christendom.
I hadn't told people that I was Orthodox when this came out. I have blurbs from Rod Dreher, Paul Kingsnorth, and Father Calvin Robinson. So I'm an Orthodox Christian, but again, it's a Catholic press. I love the Catholic Church. I was Catholic for most of the time that I was writing the book. The first thing that my priest told me when I became an inquirer was that Orthodoxy sanctifies everything that came before. And you will learn to love the Catholic Church if you're coming from the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church. You'll learn to love the best of your tradition in a way that you never loved it before. I don't want the triumphalism. I don't want all the polemics. I don't want the intellectual arguments. I just want the Church of Jesus Christ that I see in the New Testament, in the Old Testament. I want the church that I see in the writings of the fathers. I want to love God. I want to worship him in beauty. I want a simple faith. I want deep intimacy with God. I want to fast and I want to pray. I want the kind of joy and freedom that I read about in the fathers and in the early church. That's what you find that in the Orthodox Church. And you only find that fully, consistently in the Orthodox Church. St. Gregory Palamas, who went on to be Bishop of Thessalonica, when he was a young man, he witnessed the kind of the apex of the Bogomil heresy. And the Bogomils were very similar to the Cathari and the Waldensians. They were sort of a primitivist Christian movement. They only prayed the Our Father. They rejected the authority of priests and whatnot. And the Byzantine authorities were aggressively persecuted them, drove them into the mountains, but didn't stamp them out. What Gregory did is that after spending time on Mount Athos, praying and fasting and learned and being strengthened in his faith, he went up into the mountains and he met with the Bogomils and he debated with them. He defended the Orthodox faith. But what moved the Bogomils most was the fact that he was even more prayerful than they were. He fasted even more than they did. He was a holier man. He was a kinder man. So he would convert these secret villages. He would convert them back to Orthodoxy, and he would take their elders to Constantinople to be reconciled to the patriarch. It was not his arguments that ended up winning the day. It was the example of his holiness. This is really what prevented Bogomilism from ever taking hold in the Eastern Empire. Palamas is a great theologian. I mean, he's considered one of the great fathers of the Orthodox Church. But he was also, and this in the Eastern Church, these always go hand in hand. He was also a very holy man. You can't be a father unless you are holy. And we see over and over again that these are the people who save the church from destruction. It's very rarely, if ever, the emperors. It's usually not the theologians in their capacity as theologians. It's usually the great ascetics, the great missionaries, the mystics. If you look at the lives of most of the saints, not all of them, but especially modern saints, I'm thinking of like St. Paisius and others. Usually it's the great spiritual elders are just that, they're elders. They've spent the first part of their lives living in community, living hidden lives, praying, fasting, studying, and then it's only at the end of their life that they're able to go out into the world and have an impact. Not to say that only old men can be evangelists. That's absolutely not the point. But I mean, that's a very powerful type or symbol of what the missionary life is. That you have to be spiritually and intellectually enriched and fortified by the life in the church before you are able to operate effectively as a missionary. You have to have spent time drinking from the living waters before you can go out into the desert and bring the water to others. Orthodoxy has fundamentals, obviously. That's what Orthodox means. It means right glory or right belief. Orthodoxy has teachings that we must abide by in order to be Orthodox Christians, but Orthodoxy really doesn't stress dogma or even institution so much as relationship. The goal in Orthodoxy is theosis, is to become one with God, to be deified, to imitate Christ so completely that we participate in his being, that we achieve his peace, his joy. The institutional church exists in Orthodoxy to serve that end, to help us to become more like Christ. It feeds us with the sacraments. It gives us the fathers of the church to follow. Because if we want to have a relationship with Christ, we have to recognize Christ. We can't be chasing a false idea of Christ, which is the problem with heresy. If you want to have a relationship with someone, you have to know who they are. You have to recognize them. But it's all ordered towards that. It's all ordered towards deepening our relationship with Jesus Christ. You will find, of course, Roman Catholics who have a relationship with God. You will find Protestants who have a relationship with God. But everything in the Orthodox Church is ordered towards that personal encounter with the divinity, that becoming part of the divine. That is what has to sustain us. It can't be triumphalism, institutional triumphalism. It can't be intellectual arguments about this or that dogma. Again, we have to be sustained by the living waters. We have to be in constant communion with Jesus Christ. And that's exactly what the Orthodox Church exists to do, to help us to pray always, to always be mindful of his presence, to put on the mind of Christ, to find the kingdom of God within our hearts. When you become Orthodox, when you start to read the fathers, when you start to look to the fathers, to the tradition as the frame through which you read the Gospels, the scriptures open up to you in a way that they never have. You begin to identify with the early church in a way that you never have. You become aware of God's presence in your life, of his grace working through you, of your personal relationship with him in a way that you never have before. That living water is what we all thirst for, but it's also the only thing that can sustain us through persecution. It's the only thing that can make us resilient in the face of so much opposition. The only thing that can keep us tethered to Christ through all this persecution and temptation is Christ himself.
Be praying for Michael, be praying for his family. It's not an easy journey, like being in the Catholic world, which is so beautiful. So many awesome things and just lots and lots of great people and many, many good things. But for people like myself and Michael and others, we knew that there was a step that needed to be made to becoming Orthodox. So keep him in your prayers. Really cool guy.